Hello and welcome to the Mouth in the Mind podcast. I'm your host Joe, joined as always by Mr. Darren McCann.
Thank you.
And our special guest today is Mr. Mike the Truth Jackson. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks very much for coming on. So I suppose the best place, as always, to start is at the very start. So where did your love for MMA begin, Mike?
I've been a fan since the early days. I had a cousin who I've always been a fan of fighting and martial arts. But the actual MMA and UFC came about, it's probably around like high school. So it was like early 2000s. And I had a cousin who we had like the old school cable boxes with the scramblers on it. And it was like, yo, you got to check out this cage fighting. I was like, what? And they showed it to me. I was immediately hooked. I thought it was a cool concept. And then fast forward to the Ultimate Fighter, happening with Forrest and Stefan. And then I just followed. I was like, yo, because again, for me, I've always enjoyed like combat, right? And so it was just the natural evolution of fighting and entertainment. And so I just jumped all in there.
Yeah, you've been right there from the very start, really, of UFC, the early 2000s.
Yeah, man. I've been. That's the thing, man. I've been, and I don't think people realize it. Like I've been behind the scenes of and just a fan of the sport for quite a while. People, I guess, they didn't really understand or know who I am until the UFC thing. But I've been in this sport in this game a long time, and I've been very influential, especially in the Houston and Texas MMA scene.
You really are. You're one of the only people we find that covers really everything. The fighting. You're a photographer, a videographer, a journalist. You run your own podcast. You really are everything MMA, like.
Yeah, and for me, it was kind of one of those things. Growing up, I always had this idea of what I was gonna do with life. Go to school, go to college, graduate, get a family, work these jobs, and I wasn't about that. I wanted to do something that I had a passion for, and then I enjoy. And I don't want it to feel like work. Like for me, what I do now, and I'm 36, I enjoy I don't look at what I do as work. I get to wake up. I'm only waking up early to come talk to you guys. Like, I'll probably still be in bed right now.
Sorry about that.
What I'm saying? And it's just like noon over here. But that's just my life. I get to enjoy it and I get to live it how I want to live it.
They say if you like what you're doing, you'll never work a day of your life.
There you go. There you go.
I know if anyone sees your Instagram, they know you're a photographer and videographer. Legacy. Just want to know, what do you enjoy more, the punching people in the face or the media side of it?
Man, the punching people in the face is one of my favorite pastimes, to be honest with you. And it's really, I don't know why. Like it's just something that I'm really good at, and it's just. But I also look at it more of like the competition and more of a chess match. Like it's not me just going and beating people up. Like for me, like when I'm in the training room, when I'm sparring and moving around, I like to hit people with shit that makes them like, oh wow, like what was that? You know what I'm saying? And it's not like big moves. I may create a different angle and sidestep and hit you with something that you didn't even see. I'm more about the beauty and the art of fighting as opposed to the actual like brutality of fighting.
Is there anything absolutely crazy that you've ever pulled out in training that you'd never attempt in the octagon that you can think of?
One more time?
Is there anything like absolutely crazy or funny try to hit someone that sorry, I'm stuttering all over myself, that you've practiced in training but you'd never consider doing in the octagon?
Ooh, man. No, like everything that I'm training. So just to give you an idea for my weekly training. So 2 days a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, I like to spar with the amateur boxing team. And I'm probably doing about 15, 20, rounds. And when I'm in there, I get to like try out like these cool, like these ideas I get in my head with whether it's footwork or it's angles or punching, whatever I'm creating in my head. I like to go in on those days and try it out, just see if it works, because when I try out like the amateur, but like I understand what their skills are, and they can't really hurt me without me just completely letting them punch me freely, right? So I get to go in there with these low risk, high reward kind of situations and try things out. And then for me, I've been able to progress as a fighter because I'll go in there, try it out, and then I'll find something I really like that works for me. And then I'll go try it out with the higher level guys. And if it works, I keep it. If it doesn't work, I throw it away. You know what I'm saying? So now I wouldn't say there's something that I want to try that I haven't done outside of like, what was it? Probably like a spinning back kick or something like that. Like I've always wanted to land, but that's not really in my wheelhouse like that. But that would probably be the only technique, like probably like some spinning back kick or something like that.
A nice Justin Gaethje roll and thunder.
Yeah. I love Justin too. Like I've been in the training room with him. And he's an amazing fighter. Like and not just a fighter, like, he's a cool dude, just like talking to him on an individual basis too. Like dude's really insightful.
Yeah, I seen he got a bit of stick on Twitter over the weekend after him crying out Rose Namajunas.
Yeah, and I'm really close with those guys, man. I actually talked to Pat, followed right after the fight. He shot me a text, and then we talked more about the fight the next day. But like even in that, man, like the people don't understand like the emotions that go into fighting. And I was, I was fortunate enough to understand the journey that Rose has been on. I mean, I've been friends with those guys for 5, 6, 7 years, So I've been able to kind of understand the journey that she's gone through, and to see her go to winning the belt, to losing the belt in the crazy way, to fighting through all of that, and then to come back and become a champion and regain the title. Like it's a crazy thing. So when you have these people who have these emotions and they're crying, like those are real. Like people understand, like you're not in the fight game. You don't understand what goes into this sport. Like this is a sport that people dedicate their lives to. Like this is a sport that people have died in combat. You know what I'm saying? So people who down talk and try to belittle people for showing emotions I get the brutality of the sport, but it's still emotional, and that was just a release in that moment. This person went through a crazy, arduous journey, and then they came out victorious. Like that's a lot of emotion in that.
Yeah, I love everything going on out there with Trevor Whitman and Pat Barry. Pat Barry's Pat Barry's one of the funniest.
Pat Barry, I want to give a shout out to my guy Pat Barry. He's arguably the greatest hype man that I've seen, because we've had conversations like he and I one-on-ones, and I understand his mentality of what he's doing for Rose, and like it's amazing to the sacrifice this guy makes so his lady can literally be the best fighter in the world. Like that takes a lot, and that takes a lot of dedication and sacrifice.
Yeah, I love Pat's own story, like the whole being broke and then getting his first UFC contract and paying off his debts, and he seems like such a likable person.
Yeah, man, and he's in a great spot right now too. Like he's probably in the best spot that he's ever been in his life as far as like mentally and emotionally. So yeah, shout out to Rose and Pat and everything that they're doing out there.
Hopefully we'll get them on in the future as well.
That'd be a dream. I've loved everything Rose has done. She's probably my favorite woman fighter, and it was great to see.
Oh, dude, I remember watching Rose like as an amateur, like in these they were wearing like headgear and shin pads. And even I think she was probably like 19 or 20 at the time, and to watch and to see what she was doing at that age, and to watch the progression, man, it's just it's amazing.
Just want to go back to the last week's fights there. Obviously, I assume you seen what happened to Chris Weidman against Uriah Hall.
Actually, no, I didn't see it. I was like I was doing something during that fight, and I didn't get to watch it. And then I was coming back to tune in, and I just heard about what happened. I was like, nope. I didn't even turn the TV back on. I was like, nope, I can't watch it, because like for me, as I've gotten older, like when I was younger, I could kind of stomach. I go, oh yeah, that's some crazy shit. Now, man, if I see it once, like I don't want to see it after that. I'm out shooting like a lot of jiu-jitsu super fights for Submission Hunter Pro, and I have some cool and amazing finishing shots. But like when I see people like in arm bars or knee bars or these joint manipulations, like I had some really like crazy shots. And like I'll shoot it one, boom, I'll look at it like, oh, that's crazy, and then that's it. Like I can't watch them anymore. So when I heard about Chris Weidman, and all they were saying was it happened just like Anderson, and I watched the Anderson one, I was like, nah, I'm good. So I actually haven't seen it, don't want to see it. I see like little titles or headlines, I keep on scrolling, man.
Yeah, I was hyping him up all when we were talking about the fight that day. I was hyping him. I said, "Oh, Chris Weidman, Chris, watch! Everyone's gonna pay attention now." And I woke up the next morning to a text from Joe. Yeah, he really did. He really did make a statement.
And the crazy thing about that, I was the week before I was in Charlotte training at Jimmo, and he's out there now. So I didn't get to train because I was like, he got a fight coming up. There's nothing I can do for him, so we didn't get to move around. But like I was in the same room with him, and I was seeing what he was doing. He was looking good. And so I was kind of excited about the fight. And Uriah, I know his camp out, like he's over in Dallas now. And I train with those guys too. And so I was really like excited for this fight. And then the crazy shit happened. I was like, ooh, it wasn't good. So, but for Chris, man, hopefully he has an amazing and speedy recovery, because he's a great fighter, and hopefully we can see him again.
Do you have any insights to the getting back mentally after an injury like that from a fighter's perspective, what he might be going through right now?
I've never I've dealt with injuries. I'm kind of dealing with something right now, but I've never dealt with anything to the magnitude of like, oh man, my career is over, or potentially could be over. I've never had, outside of like fractures, in my hand or my shin, like I've never had anything that massive. So I don't know. Like I don't know what he could be possibly going through his mind, because you have to think about it. Like this is someone who's a former champion, and he has a mentality and mindset to get that title back. But then we also have to remember, like, he's an older guy. Like his window he's not like 23, 24-year-old like stud, right? He is someone who's toward the tail end of his career. And like this is a devastating injury. Not to say he can't come back from it, but the chances of it are pretty slim. Or maybe he comes back, but he may not be able to compete at the highest level, like the guys fighting for the title. There's so many variables at play right here, and we just have to wait and see. But I'm hoping this is a recovery where he comes back and he comes back as like nothing happened. Very similar to Anderson.
Yeah, we'd have to hope, because Chris Weidman's a hell of a fighter. I mean, he was unbelievable 100%. winning that title. Yeah. I think we'd all love to see the Chris Weidman of old back.
Yeah, for sure.
And even watching all the training camp footage and stuff like that, he was in such a good place, and he looked strong, and he looked great. And we probably haven't seen that in probably 2015, 16. Yeah. Chris Weidman, as he said, he was training down in Charlotte. He moved out of Wonder Boy's gym and was down with Anthony Smith in Charlotte. And it was horrible to see. I was emotional watching it,
Yeah. So, and see, I didn't want to get caught up in that either, the emotions. I was like, nah, let me not do that. I didn't want any part of that.
Supposed to move on to your career a little bit. Obviously, we know you were booked to fight the end of last year and the start of this year with fellow Irishman Dean Barry. Are you hoping to get back in with Dean Barry, or what's next now?
Yeah, I was really excited about that matchup. I think, I'm a real big proponent of styles making fights, and, that's what the fans want to see. I don't, I don't think like you have people who say, oh, they don't want to look at one aspect of fighting, right? Whether it's the grappling, whether it's the rep, whatever it is, right? You have to put opponents together or fighters together that sort of cancels out these kinds of stalemate games. And myself and Dean Barry, this is it was just a solid matchup. You have two strikers. One, Dean Moore has a karate kickboxing style. Me, I have more of the boxing style. And I think it was just going to make for an amazing fight. I had some issues because it was kind of last minute when they initially put us together. And I couldn't get my passport in time to get out to Abu Dhabi. So we're like, okay, we're just gonna move it, to Vegas in May. And then I want to say around maybe like February or so, I got a message just basically saying, like, the dude, he's not gonna get his visa. I'm trying to figure out when he said. Oh, so this was in March. So by end of March, he's like, hey, the kid isn't gonna get his visa. So it's kind of just a waiting game, right? And then I wanted it like toward the, it was about a month had gone by, and it's like, hey, because before that, I had like some guys who were basically trying to get into the UFC, and they were like, hey, this is a perfect opportunity. Let's call out Mike Jackson. So I woke up one morning to just a bunch of fighters tagging me on posts and stuff, talking about, don't be scared, come fight. Come to find out, none of these guys were signed to the UFC. It was just their way of trying to get in. And look, I get it, but don't disrespect me and don't lie on me. When Dean Barry came to me, like Dean and I, we're the ones who kind of set that fight up behind the scenes. And everything was cool. Like, even when he, like, it was nothing disrespectful on a private matter, right? Like when he got out and he was promoting the fight, saying he was going to knock me out, he wants the 50K, et cetera, et cetera. I'm cool with that because it's fighting, right? But don't lie. Like, he never lied. Like, these new guys, they're lying. They're saying, oh, I'm scared to fight him and I signed a contract. Like, there is no contract and I'm not scared. I've never in my life backed out or backed down from a fight. If I'm backing out of a fight, it's because I'm injured. I've never avoided anything because I understand what this is, and that's just who I am. Like, if I say I'm a fight, then I'm a fight. So right now it's just, and then again they changed the opponent. I had some injuries kind of flaring up and causing some issues. Now, with the issues I have, I would still fight Dean Barry. Being that the way the stylistically the fights are. With the new guys, it just doesn't make any sense for me to take those risks or chances with this fight. For me, it's more, it makes more sense to heal up and get better before I get back out there.
Yeah, definitely. There's no reason in putting yourself in any needless damage.
It doesn't, because what people don't understand, like, for me, and I get it, like, you have guys who are trying to provide for their families and they're trying to take their careers to the next level, et cetera, et cetera. I get that. And that's cool. I'm in a boat on my own. Like, I'm in my own little boat, doing my own little thing, cruising up the river, right? And you have these other guys who are trying to bite off that. Let me do what I'm doing. I'm just chilling. You know what I'm saying? Let me do what I'm doing and I'll get back when I can and when I'm ready to. Because again, I don't have to do that. I'm just doing this for the shits and giggles.
I feel like a lot of up and coming fighters as well are kind of copying that, Conor McGregor, Jake Paul type of idea, where if you can talk enough. I mean, Dylan Dennis is probably the best example of that now. He's always talking, always kind of calling people out, but nothing to back it up really.
But and look, I get, if that's your method, like, that's cool, right? But again, don't be disrespectful, don't lie, and you have to own up to it. Because a lot of times people, they're trying this thing out, but it's not really them. Like, people want to be Conor McGregor, they're not Conor McGregor. You know what I'm saying? People want to be these charismatic individuals, and they lack charisma. You know what I'm saying? So you have to do what works best for you. I look, back in the day when I first, like 2010, 2011, I was working with a former manager of mine. I was doing some consulting work, and I was basically helping fighters at the time, because this was a moment in time where it was the evolution of the sport. It was really early on. People didn't really know what was going on, but I was way ahead of my time. Like, I started this whole platform and branding and content creations, 2008, 2009 is when I started this. And so I was trying to help fighters, especially locally in Houston and in Texas. I was trying to influence them and help them with their brand building. And some of them took to it. Some of them didn't. It is what it is. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to put asses in seats. So if you're going to talk the talk, you got to walk the walk. And if you talk it, you got to be good at it. because people want to see you. You doing this for people to see you fight. And if you're a shitty trash talker, like they probably not going to see you fight. So if you're gonna talk the trash, be good at it. If you're not good at it, just don't talk the trash, and you won't look silly.
I'd just be like a fellow bloke from Houston, Derek Lewis. It's just that funny. He just grabs everyone's attention.
Derek Lewis, perfect example, right? Derek, and I've been knowing him, he and I've been friends for a very long time. Derek found his thing. Derek is not, he'll have like these little comedic little short clips and little videos, but that's his thing. He's not very, to have a charismatic interview, he's not a long-winded charismatic person. He's not going to put on a show for you. He's going to give you like these little quick clips and he's out. That's his thing. He knows he's not a talker. So, you're not going to see Derek sit and talk to people for hours because it's not his thing, right? So he found his niche and look what he's doing with it. So you got to find what works for you.
So would you say building your own brand as a fighter is probably just as important as backing it up with the fighting ability, or where would you say, 70-30?
100%. Well, what people don't understand is that this is a business, right? And every fighter is their own individual business. They're their own little startup, right? And you have to figure out what your goal is in a startup. Like if your goal is to be a UFC champion, right? You have to figure out what your skills are, your tools that's going to get you there. Again, let's take Conor McGregor. Not only talk the talk, he's very good with his mouth. He has the fighting ability to back it up. So you put the two together and you get this crazy monster, right? Let's look at Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva speaks Portuguese, very little English, trying to cross over. He's not out here doing the Conor McGregor thing. He's not out here talking the talk because that's not it. There's a language barrier. He's trying to cross over in the translation from Portuguese to English. It may not cross over well. So he just goes in front, kicks people in the face. He goes out here and does this matrix kind of thing, right? Because that works for him. Every fighter has to figure that out so they can be successful. Because at the end of the day, if you're not putting the ass in seats, it doesn't matter. This fighter in the gym, if no one wants to see you fight, they're not gonna put you on the card. Because you can get to the UFC, but how did you get to the UFC if no one wanted to see you fight at the lower levels? You know what I'm saying? So all of this goes together and it's intertwined.
It's like the contrast between Leon Edwards and Darren Till, two phenomenal fighters and two at such a high level. But look at Leon, not that he's not very marketable. I don't think he tries to be marketable,
And
he does his fighting and he does some.
Let's take Leon, right? Leon, that's not his style. He's not he's gonna talk when he's presented with something, right? Somebody says, "Oh, I want to fight," or they say they want to fight, then they back out. He'll say something, or something happens backstage, get into a little skirmish, he'll say something. But you don't see Leon Edwards just get on Twitter and start, fuck everybody up and fight me. He kind of just engages in these little, when someone kind of antagonizes him, he'll engage. That's his style. But again, when people know his name now, his name is starting to build up, and it just took a little longer. If he had a different personality, he probably would have got his name bigger a lot quicker. But for him, it was just slow and steady. And then now people know. I want to say people really know who Leon Edwards is right now.
And I think the Nate Diaz fight will do a lot for his career.
Yeah,
definitely. So you probably fought at the time, anyways, in UFC. It was one of the biggest names, one of the biggest brands coming through. When you were fighting CM Punk, when you're in the octagon with him, can you tell that he's not that born and bred fighter, or is there any sort of difference at all?
100%, and that is why I fought the fight the way I did. So I went in there thinking that he could have got. I understand the limit, because I know fighting and I understand people's limitations. Are you gonna have some BJ Penn, John Jones prodigies? 100%. But there is a way you get there, right? they weren't on the same playing fields. And so I understood the limitations. It was not to knock him, because it's no disrespect to him at all. It's just what it was. He wasn't as good as I thought he was going to be. And it was because he just couldn't. Not a knock on Phil, but not everyone is meant to do everything. And not everyone has these athletic abilities and gifts. And I think like I told people, like at the very open of the fight, he came out like a double jab. And like, I immediately recognized like, oh, it's not that he's a bad fighter. He just can't fight. And that's just what it was. And again, not a knock on him. I'm not an astrophysicist. I'm not a brain surgeon. You know what I'm saying? This is fighting. And he just didn't have, I don't want to say he can't fight. He just couldn't fight at that level. Like if he would have went the proper way, start off like as an amateur and worked his way up, it would have been different. But given that branding and personality, he couldn't have gone that way. He couldn't have gone the route of an amateur because his name was too big. It would be really tough to properly match him up. And then also you have to think about the following he has, and people want to monetize that. It would be very difficult to monetize CM Punk as an amateur fighter. And you would have to put him on as a pro, but you can't put him on a local level because the local level shows can't afford to pay him. So really the only option were like a Bellator at the time, before they came PFL. What were they called?
Fight, Jesus Christ.
I know, right? But the race their thing in the UFC. And given the level of popularity, none of those other brands or promotions made sense except the UFC. You know, so it was one of these experiments that happened, and it just kind of backfired, I guess, because I wish I could tell you what was in Dana White's head when they okayed that. I wish you know what? I'm gonna ask him. They're coming to Houston. I have to ask him now as I think about this question, because me staying against him, I was just like, well, before the fight, I told people what was going to happen before Gall and I fought. I was like, if he fights Gall, he's going to get taken down and submitted, which is basically what happened. I said, if I fight this guy, I'm going to beat him up, which is what happened. And I just don't I don't think they respected my skills, to be honest with you. And I don't care. I'm not offended or hurt by that, but I had to make Buddy pay with these hands.
I think I knew what was in Dana White's head. Big dollar signs.
But I agree, because they paid him and he ended up getting like $500,000 a fight. And I agree. But at what point are you like, all right, this guy's health and well-being is like, because after the first one, we saw what happened, and then you just wanted to run it back to the bank. And I get that. But you put him in there with someone who said what they were going to do. And because my style was boxing, they knew what my style was. You know, they knew what I was coming to do. And I just feel they felt he was better than what he was, and they didn't think I was as good as I really am. And then that made me in there beating that dude up, and I sent him to the emergency room. Now he's commentating, which is appropriate. But imagine if I would have went out there and smacked this dude so hard where he couldn't commentate anymore. You know, he's also talking about getting back into professional wrestling right now as a performer. What if he couldn't do that no more? I would have felt, I legit would have felt bad, you know, because it wasn't like he was trying this out or get into the sport to be champion. He was trying out because he was a fan, and he had this pull to compete in the UFC in front of a lot of people. I get it. But people, like, this is a life-changing sport. At one moment, your life can be over. It can be changed drastically in a negative way. I didn't want to be that guy.
Do you think there's a bit of that in why it seemed like Dana White was so annoyed after your and CM Punk's fight? I think he said there was a lot he said actually after the fight about you, about how you're done in the UFC.
Look, I get the play. Like, that's the game. You have to know how to play the game out here. You know what I'm saying? And I'm someone who knows how to play these games. So when Dana White gets on TV and or on the internet and he's talking all this, like, I don't, that doesn't do anything to me, because he's just talking words. The only thing that really negatively came out of that, outside of me, because that night I was trying to eat this deep dish pizza for the first time. Outside of just ruining my deep dish pizza moment, I just have some internet trolls like, yo, Dana White said you suck, you'll never fight again. Like, all right, that don't do nothing to me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I didn't even lose any sleep. I don't care. I've talked to Dana since then. We chopped it up, and it is what it is.
I think the main question I have now is, was it a nice pizza though?
What about the pizza?
Was it a nice pizza?
Man, New York pizza is way better than Chicago deep dish pizza, man. Like, yeah, look, I get it. I get people like the casserole pizzas, but I'm a New York style personally. I like to fold it up and eat my pie like that. Can't do that with Chicago deep dish.
I think that was my favorite thing about New York, was $1 slices.
Man, that's what I'm talking about. I remember going to New York for the first time, and I remember that's one of my favorite cities, by the way. And Pete was talking about the pizza, and I went on the block. Me and my cousin, we was walking through Harlem, and we stopped at like this pizza joint. And I was like, yo, this is it. This is it. I had some of my best pizzas have been from New York.
Starving now.
I
can't get behind the whole Chicago sticking tomato sauce in the crust now.
It's so like it was too much. Like, again, because I was like, I wanted to eat it. It was my first time. I had already planned it out. And while I plan my trips around food anyway, I have this thing called the Truth Food Tour. And this was one of the, I planned the place out. I had the location, the pizza, the what type of pizza I was going to get. And I remember going after the fight. One of my homegirls, she flew out to Chicago to watch the fight. So we went out for some pizza after. So we get there and they was like, it's gonna be like 45 minutes. I was like, damn, 45. I was like, all right, I really want the pizza. So I was like, all right, cool. So when I'm waiting, I pull my phone out and get on Twitter, and I was like, oh shit. My Twitter was blowing up. Because after the fight, I was in the back, the dressing room, like because I was the first fight on the main card. So I go back, I do my interviews, take a shower and all this stuff, and I would go to the green room and get something to eat. And it's probably about, it was maybe like the fight before the co-main event. And so I'm sitting in the back, eating or whatever, and I'm on my phone, like trying to eat, watch the fights, and check out Twitter. And it was crazy. So I'm doing all of that, and I'm trying to process what the fans are saying, whether it's good or bad. I'm trying to eat. It was a lot going on tonight, but it was a memorable night though. Now that I kind of revisit sitting here talking to you guys.
I know we've seen on Twitter recently your incident that happened with Southwest Airlines. Would you mind just telling us what happened there?
Yeah, let me start this by saying, like, I have no quarrels with Southwest Airlines. I've been a A-lister for over a decade, and had very little issues. I think this itself was just simply an isolated event, given the people. But basically, what happened, I was in line. I had my anti-racist hat on, and so one of the flight attendants basically like, yo, someone's offended by your hat, you need to take it off. And I was like, nah. They call regular manager. I was like, nah. They call like the black guy supervisor manager. And when he came, I was like, fine. Because I understand what black people going through it, and he didn't want to be there. So I was like, all right, cool. And I was like, I just need to get in the air. Because after that, because I fight like I'm built for this. Like, I'm the guy that's built to fight this kind of racist shit, right? So, and I don't take it personal, because I understand what it is. Like, this is like a war, right? It's a war versus anti-racist versus racist. And in a war, you're gonna have people who are contrarians, who are fighting against you, right? I can't take that personally. It's just what it is. And that's what this is, right? So I'm combating these guys. We get in the air, the thing goes on. I was like, game on. I put the hat on. I was like, let's see what happens. Sure enough, Shorty comes over here. I said, yo, you out of here. Don't bother me with this hat shit. Cause you know what makes sense. And then when I explain myself, she's like, oh yeah, you make a good point. No shit, I make a good point. Get out of here. She gets out of here. Well, I guess they call her to the ground. They was like, yo, the dude on the, we totally got on the plane to take his hat off. He put the hat back on. So I get some little short, some racist white lady. She comes and she's harassing me about the hat. And that's when I posted that. And then I kind of just whatever her and that's it. But actually, I'm glad you asked me about that because when will this podcast air?
Tonight.
Cool. By tonight, the video will be. I have the whole thing documented, and I'll be posting on all my social media: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can follow me at The Truth Jackson. All those full videos coming out by the time this podcast is out.
We'll have all the links in the description anyway for all your socials.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. Yeah, and so that's another thing that I'm out here doing right now is because, you know, we have a lot of times are changing, man. Is really what it is, and you know, I'm doing my part in this crazy battle that we're out here living. You know what I'm saying? And because again, I'm built for this. You know, not everybody has the capabilities to put themselves in these toxic environments, man. You know, when I'm on the social media, when I thrive in toxic environments because I'm just as toxic as these guys. I'm just on the other side of it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm cool with it. It's just we got to keep fighting. That's it.
There are certain people, I suppose, who are built for it, and some people who aren't built for that to fight against that toxic shit. Especially, you know,
and it hit me because at the beginning of the pandemic, we obviously had the George Floyd out here. So, you know, we had these George Floyd protests and my light went out. We had these George Floyd protests and I was out there taking pictures and marching and I realized like, yo, the marching thing may not be for me. You know, I need to find what works for me in these environments and I feel that I found it.
Yeah, America's a fucked up place at the minute. Like,
well, to be honest with you, I think the world itself is a fucked up place. To be honest with you, and we at this thing, there's degrees of fucked upness, and we're a pretty high level at the moment. But it just you got to keep fighting. That's just what it is.
Yeah,
it's always going to be something, I suppose.
Always going to be something. This is, and to be honest with you, this is a never-ending war that we're fighting right now. This is, you know, because of, you know, thousands of years ago, people in their ideologies, and it's kind of trickled down here. It's just a process. We're going to fight this thing forever because what's going to happen, the objective is to push these kinds of people and these ideologies to the fringes of society, right? Now, that's the objective. Once we push them to the fringes of society, you think they're going to want to stay there? Nah, they're going to want to come back. And so we have to continue. We're fighting now to get them there. And we're going to have to continue to fight to keep them there. Because they're always going to want to rebuttal and refute this, you know, their positions in life. We don't want to be out here. We want to show our evil and negativity and whatever our ideologies are. We want to impose that on society. You can't have that. We can't have a thriving world and society of people if we got these shitheads trying to cause ruckus. So we got to keep them on there. We got to keep our feet on these racist necks, man.
I suppose now, as someone who's in the thick of it and working hard to make the world a better place, is there any advice you would have for anyone watching who wants to get involved and do their part?
Hey, look, really what this all comes down to is just empathy for your fellow human, no matter what they look like. People lack empathy right now, and which is really weird given that we're in a pandemic and people lack empathy, right? But that's really what it is. Like, you got people saying, hey, I'm going through these issues. Don't be like, nah, no, you're not. Like, what? What are you talking about? Like, it's really wild. So I think that's the biggest issue. That's the simplest thing right now. And without getting into real details and helping people out or giving them too much information, it's empathy. Just have empathy for your fellow human and we'll be better.
Yeah, that seems like really important. I think
Yeah.
everyone needs to listen to that and take that one on board.
There you go.
Well, I think that's all we have for you today. Thanks very much for that, Mike. That was
Sure. I
unbelievable.
appreciate you guys for having me, man. Great conversation.
Thanks, Mike. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for watching.